Hello, it's Kelly Longtin from Kelly Longtin Law, and today I wanted to talk to you about the idea and the use of incentive trusts. Now, a lot of parents or grandparents with sizable amounts of money to pass on to their children or grandchildren, they're a little apprehensive about the effect it may have when their kids or their grandkids receive a large inheritance. And in some instances, they fear that the beneficiaries will misspend the funds either on, new cars or some sort of business venture that doesn't seem very profitable, or perhaps they're struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction. And in other cases, the fear is simply that their children will lose their drive to achieve their work ethic and to instill that hard work that their parents or their grandparents had that led them to have a lot of wealth to pass on to them. And it may prevent them from, learning some survival skills to overcome barriers that may present themselves if there's no financial necessity to do so. And at the same time, these parents and grandparents, they want to provide a safety net to their children or their beneficiaries, and they want to enhance their lives in what can be a very insecure financial world right now. And often they do so by leaving funds to their kids in a trust that might distribute the funds at certain ages. Maybe it's a third at the age 25, and then another third at the age of 30, and then the remainder at 35, just like a staggered distribution. But some parents also set up what's known as incentive trusts. And these can get very specific in their instructions to the trustees, but the main goal is that they ensure that the trust funds support whatever the parent's view is as a positive behavior, and that it helps to discourage maybe some unproductive behavior and activities. Now, such trusts, they may pay for certain activities like a college education or an advanced degree, or perhaps it provides rewards for achieving various life milestones. Others may withhold distributions when the beneficiary engages in certain negative behavior or activities. And it could be, maybe it's a drug and alcohol issue that they're dealing with, or perhaps they just have excessive spending. Now, some ways in which incentive trusts might be structured are rewards for degrees, or matching earnings, or perhaps paying for education. Some use it to create a charitable foundation. Some, maybe they have a children or a grandchild who has, a very job that gives back to the community, or maybe it's like the Peace Corps or something that doesn't pay well, although it provides a huge service to the world we live in. Maybe there's a distribution if somebody gets married or has kids and family vacations, or perhaps there's incentive to save money so that they can buy a home. And there's maybe even incentives as far as someone's behavior goes, to be financially responsible, or perhaps, if they're struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction, they may be rewarded for staying clean for an extended amount of time. So I want to dive a little bit deeper in what these incentive trusts might look like. So when we're talking about rewards for degrees, this could just be cash amounts that descendants receive, so children or grandchildren receive, on achieving maybe specific educational milestones. Is it a high school diploma, or a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree, or perhaps a trade school? Now, as far as the matching earnings incentive goes, sometimes parents like to set it up that they'll match for every dollar a child makes. They'll reward them with $1 from their inheritance. And that's strictly because they want their kids to maintain a strong work ethic, even though they have received this inheritance. Now, an incentive trust that I see pretty frequently is one that pays for education. And especially with the high cost of private universities today, grandparents often set up funds to help pay for education. Now, some funds are more expansive than others in terms of what it is that they'll cover. Some just cover undergraduate degrees, or maybe just a graduate program. And some are only for higher education, and others also include to learn a craft or go to trade school. And you have to ask, if this is something you want to set up, will the fund pay for private school before college? And is it going to cover educational programs during the summer, or to travel overseas, or to study abroad? Is room and board covered, as well as just tuition? And some of the answers will be determined by the size of the fund and how far it needs to reach and how many people it needs to cover. sometimes for parents in order to encourage charitable giving amongst their children. An estate plan could require their kids to give away a certain amount every year to a private foundation or to a donor advised fund as a way of having their children maintain something that the parents probably started as far as giving back to the community or giving to others and to charities. And we live in an increasingly financially insecure world that often forces people to take or to stick with careers that they don't find fulfilling or that they don't feel further the public good. Now, parents or grandparents could fund trusts that don't match all of their earnings, but maybe just those that they feel make the world a better place. And this may be hard to define and will of course be different from fund to fund. Some examples it may include working for any not-for-profit, although they may be quite well funded, or teaching or political organizing for certain causes. And for parents who are really focused on family, they may make distributions upon their kids getting married or even having children. Oftentimes, parents will also include a fund to match a down payment for a house. So the more money that their child saves in order to buy a house, then they'll match that saving. So it's a built-in reward system, doubling the amount of money that a child may be able to put down for their first home. And sometimes there may be a reward for a period of time where a child who might be struggling in life is alcohol or drug-free. Now, through these incentive trusts, parents and grandparents hope that their money will go to causes that they support. On the one hand, the approach can multiply the benefit of what they pass on. And on the other hand, it may seem that the deceased is trying to continue to exercise control maybe much too long after they are gone. And often the older generations, they kind of split the difference where they find a happy medium, giving some funds outright to their kids or their beneficiaries, and perhaps leaving the rest in the trust. Now, however, an incentive trust must be carefully constructed, both to ensure that its terms are clear and that does not violate any constitutional or public policy, law, or standard. Now, for an example of this would be, there was a case that ended up in the courts where the grandparents set up a trust that withheld funds from any grandchild who married outside of the Jewish faith. Now, this was an Illinois court case, and 2 Illinois courts ruled that the clause disinheriting the grandchildren was invalid because it was against public policy by using or placing a significant limitation on the grandchildren's freedom to marry. So if you're interested in creating an incentive trust, you just want to speak to your elder law or your estate planning attorney to make sure that you set it up appropriately and effectively.